Hello guys and welcome to this Anhur Viability review. If you're new to Viability review, it's the series where we take some unorthodox picks, I guess you can say, and put them into the support role. So we've been through quite a few right now. What did we do last time? We played Afro support. We've tried like numerous of different supports out. And then we kind of go over and talk about if we think they're viable or not. And yeah, it's again, who would have think Anhur is a support? And can he be played in the support role? And that's basically what we're going to be talking about today. As always, we're going to start off with Anhur's ability. Now, Anhur, the Egyptians, they have enemies. It's usually a hunter. We all know that. Anhur's passive is called Enfeeble. Anhur spears attacks reduce the enemy target's physical protection for 3 seconds. This is a 20 physical protection debuff. Now, I think that this passive for a support, remember all the abilities we're going to be talking about, how they're going to fare in the support role. I think it's good. I think it's a really strong passive. Having a flat 20% protection debuff is super strong, especially in lane. If you're like with another ADC, so doing a double hunter lane, you're gonna be hitting super hard, and your own ADC is gonna be hitting for like that 5 or 10 more damage, which honestly matters a lot. So I think he has that going for him. I think he has a super good passive. I guess the only thing you can say that kind of sucks about it is you have the basic attack to maintain it, and when you're not building a lot of attack speed, because you're gonna play him as a support, it doesn't really it's not something you're proccing on multiple targets, which I guess is the optimal use, at least if you're playing it in the support role. Anhur's one is called Shifting Sands. Anhur erects, that's very sexual, and uphills from the ground, blocking all player movement. The surrounding sand slows enemies and increases the damage of Anhur's basic attack against the targets in the sand. Now, I think Anhur's like the pillar itself, I think it's really strong. It's really good at blocking teammates, which actually I killed one of my teammates that was being annoying at one point. That was really fun. I was a bit of a cook in these like games, but I think he's fun. He's kind of this troll god, right? Like you just block people off on the enemy team and your own team. I think let's go back on track here though. I think the one definitely has a lot of potential. The pillar is super good at blocking abilities. You can block straight line abilities. Like I blocked quite a few Nasha sashes with my one. I can even place the one in front of like a he bolt. If you place it perfectly, you can obviously use it to body block. The pillar one combo is actually not that hard to hit. I think I have like a 50% success rate. Like I hit every second one of them. So yeah, now the actual sands outside the pillar, we talk about the pillar a lot now, which I think is again super good. It's a 7-second lifetime. It really matters. What a lot of people told me is like, this guard should be really good because he has an AoE slow that slows for 35% for 7 seconds, right? And that's literally like one of the biggest. This guard should be really good in the support role because he has this huge slow that can kind of split up team fights. And yes, I do think Shifting Sands is a really good ability for team fighting, but I think it's most effective when you're actually doing these Phoenix and Tower sieges in the jungle. It doesn't really matter. Sure, people have to pass through it, but they don't stay in it. So I think people have a tendency to over-credit the Shifting Sands a bit. I don't think it deserves to be, or like get that as much credit as it does basically. A 35% slow though is super good, and it is very rough for anyone to walk through it, but you have to remember it scales from 15% slow to 35% slow, and he also gets a damage buff from 4% to 20%. It's of course it's good, right? It's just a luxury stat to have on there, but it's nothing special because you're not building full damage. You're not getting these super big hits for like almost true damage when you have the 1-up because you get the damage buff. But yeah, Shifting Sands overall, I think the first two abilities are super good support abilities, and I mean the passive, right? The first ability and the passive ability. The Impale, Anhur's 2. Anhur hurls his spear with a great might. If the spear hits a guard, they take damage and are knocked back. Guards knocked back into a wall are stunned. Enemies hit by a pushed back guard by the pushed guard takes damage as well. The spear passes through minions, doing damage to them as well. Now the stun duration is 1.1 to 1.5 seconds all after the levels. It has really good damage on it. 350 base damage is not that bad at all. I think that's again, I'm gonna compare it to like other support classic guardians. It's like the most comparable one is the Fafnir hammer, right? Now the difference is Fafnir hammer is always gonna stun and it slows, but it doesn't go through guards. Where one of Anhur's biggest problems, they changed this, is that his 2 could get blocked by guards before. And sure, you would get knocked back, but it wouldn't do damage to minions. But now it actually does damage to minions as well. So it's not that good blocking Anhur's Impale. But yeah, I think like it's a pretty goddamn good ability. The problem I have with it is that it's kind of inconsistent to hit the stun on it. Like sure, you have good wave clear with it. It works out fine, but I would rather have another CC ability, if you get me. Like I'm thinking Athena Taunt or Savannah's Root or whatever it could be, right? Ymir Freeze, Ganesha, even Ganesha like 2 is probably a better ability than Impale. So I think it's a pretty mediocre ability for the support role. It has a lot of base damage, which is really good. A stun is always nice. It's super good early on, but it kind of falls off. Anhur's 3, Disperse, probably the short or like the longest, not the shortest, the longest duration jump in the game. It's a leap, right? Anhur leaps to his ground, target location, doing damage and knocking back all enemies in the radius where he lands. 15 radius of this. The knock up is pretty significant, like it actually goes quite far. It's pretty good, but the thing with it is, how often do you jump in? Even when you're playing support Anhur, sure, you jump in quite a bit, but even when you jump in, it's kind of hard to make sure you hit the jump on the enemy. Like I kind of find it hard to consistently land a jump if you're not basic attacking, as someone has the AA movement speed. What's it called? The AA movement speed, whatever, dog. Cancel fee something debuff, sure, whatever. So I think it's okay. It's definitely not a bad jump. It kind of sucks it's slow, but it can be used offensively as well, which sure a lot of jumps can, but I think it's one of the better offensive jumps as well. Sucks it's so slow, sucks its radius is pretty small. So again, it's a pretty mediocre ability, I think, for Guardians. Sure, you can actually peel pretty well with it. The problem is there's a lot of like channeled abilities that are knock up immune. I'm thinking Gorn U3, I'm thinking Tier Fearless, right? I'm thinking these abilities, you won't really interrupt them. I guess the same goes for Tier Fearless, you won't really interrupt it with the 2 either way. So the same goes for the 2, right? There's a lot of channeled abilities that have knock up and knock back immunity. Desert Fury Anhur's ult. Now this is kind of weird, right? Because usually when you think support ults, or guardians at least, traditional guardians have some of the strongest ults in the game. Athena ult is super strong, Ares ult super strong, Fafnir ult super strong, Cerberus ult super strong, Savannah's ult is super strong, Gep ult is super strong, or Gep, sorry, I need to learn it. But all these ultimates are these big huge AoE ults, or well, some of them are like, you can't hit me because I'm TPing across the map and I'm Athena, but you get the point, right? Anhur's Desert Fury is more of a single target. If you're lucky, you're hitting more than one person ability. So Anhur summoning the Fury of Desert, and her hungers down and throws empowered spears that pass through everything, doing damage to all enemies in their path. He's immune to crowd control for the duration. So he has CC immunity on his ult, which I think is pretty goddamn strong, honestly. I think that's one of the better things about him. The base damage on the spears is pretty good as well. I'm pretty sure it procs. It procs in Feeble as well, the debuff, right? So this is gonna be a way of of debuffing a whole enemy team, but I don't really think that works out right. But I think it's a really good ult. I'll get more into why a bit later, but I think in general the CC immunity and the fact that it's a 75-second cooldown rather than the traditional 90-second cooldown honestly is super good for Anhur. On Anhur support, you max the ult, and then you max the 2, and then you max the 1, and then you max the 3. You want to start with the 2 at level 1. At level 2, you can get your 1 and your 3 depending on how the game is going. But I recommend having a point into all abilities at level 3. Although you could go with like 2 points into the impale, but then you actually want a point into the jump rather than a point into the 1. So that was a bit about Anhur's kit and Anhur's ability. Let's go to some of the pros about Anhur. So with it, like at least from what I feel like in the games I played. So one of Anhur's biggest pros is that he's strong early. Now he's not the best early game guard. If you want super full early game pressure, you'd probably pick something like Nasha, Amaterasu, Kukulin, Sylvanus, along those lines, and get full early pressure and full early dominance. But he is in the high end of the spectrum. He has quite a bit of pressure. Yeah, pressure is the right word early on. Now I think that Anhur is like, he's very good at level 1, right? Because he has his passive, and if he's paired with an ADC, that actually helps out a bit. Now in my games, I was so lucky today when I played. I actually played 4 games today because I wanted to try so many different builds. Can't wait till we get to the build section. But I don't know, man. He just felt, as soon as people get onto the body of you, if that makes sense, at level 1, and you're forced to use your impale, he feels kind of weak early. But if you can maintain the distance and just throw spears at them, you're in a really good state. His wave clear is superb. His kill potential early on is super high. So I think that's one of the things he has got going for him. If he were to be played in support, it's definitely going to be traditional guardians like Gep or Athena, Eris, Fafnir, all those kind of Ganesha, all those kind of guardians, right? Now the one big thing he also really has going for him is that he has the CC immune ult on a 75 second cooldown. Sorry, that just works wonders, right? Like there's so, like I think CC immunity is one of the most broken things in Smite, right? Like you're actually just getting a free beat. Yeah, sure, it's your ult, right? But the cooldown is so low, and how are you really gonna use that anyway? I guess I want to mention, I think the damage on Anhur is pretty goddamn strong. Just to go back to the abilities, but yeah, I think the CC immune ult is one of the big things he got going to him. And then Anhur actually has high CC. I think he can be considered a high CC guard. He has a crowd control on 3 of his abilities, right? He has his slow, his knockback stun, and his knockback or knock up, I guess it is, jump. He has high CC, although I think it's relatively hard to hit it. Like, you find yourself in scenarios where I at least feel like you're not really hitting your impales or hitting your jumps, right? And sure, that's just mechanics, but if you compare it to like a big fat cone ability like Athena Taunt or EmilZy or something like that, it's honestly super hard to land his abilities compared to the traditional guardian and us supports that don't really have that much mechanical skill. Well, I mean, I wouldn't consider myself a mechanical monster, but yeah, you guys get me, right? Like it's definitely something you have to get used to. So yes, high CC if you can hit it. And I think he's actually, with the high CC comes a relatively good peel. Like Anhur actually peels really well. He kinda like makes sure that that, like, again, his big problem is channel abilities, but he kind of makes sure that, let's say someone like a Kukulin or something is running down your backline, you can actually just go there and knock them up, smack him into the wall, kind of block him off with the 1. So his peel actually works out pretty goddamn well. He has higher than usual objective damage, right? Because he spread prots. And then he just does more damage because he's a hunter and he has more in-hand damage and more attack speed than the usual guard in the game. And then the consistent slow on his 1 is honestly super strong once you get some points into it. Alright, cons with Anhur, because this is where it really gets rough. He does not really excel in anything, Anhur. If I want early game pressure, there's 5 other guards that are gonna do better than her, at least, that I could pick. If I want damage from my support, there's 5 other guards than Anhur I can pick and do more damage. If I want peel, there's 5 more guards at least, right? There's probably 10 that are gonna do way better. There's more than 10, right? If I want pressure lane, I mentioned that, right? But if I want a good late game support, there's 50 guards in the game that is better than Anhur late game, probably even 70, right? He's not number 1 in something, right? Like, all the Guardians at least has something special to them. Like Ganesha is super strong in some scenarios. You have like Archer that's super strong just in general. Like, she does super well for pressure as well. Then you have someone like Cerberus that has this gimmick against anti-heal. You have Fafnir that's just this late game monster. Athena has a global ult threat. Anhur doesn't really have anything. Like, he doesn't have something that makes him super special in a support role. I mean, sure, he has a 75%. Why do you keep saying percent? But 75-second cooldown ult. And yeah, that's fine. But it like, other Guardians and other Warriors and mages you can play have CC immunity. If you want CC immunity, why don't you just play Aphro or Hell? Like, Hell has CC immunity every 10 seconds, and then you get cooldown, and it's suddenly every like 6 seconds. So he doesn't excel in anything, and he can't engage either. I think that's a really big problem now. In my last game, I realized I probably need Blink, and I honestly think that's the way to play it. If you're playing Anhur support, you actually kind of need Blink. It's pretty sad, but you can actually walk up behind someone and surprise it. We'll get a bit more into like techniques with Anhur a bit later. But yeah, he doesn't engage. Like, what are you gonna do? Are you just gonna start off a team fight with fucking jumping in, you know, just balls deep, then place a good pillar on the front line, and you just start like impale them, and then you hit them for 50, and they're like 80% health, and they kind of just stand there. Maybe they like dance on you. You probably just die, but he needs engage, right? I think he actually works as a peeling guard, honestly. So that's how you want to play him. He's very weak late game if you build him tanky. I went for some hybrid builds, right? Like, I tried a few different things, but I didn't want to go full damage, because obviously if you're going full damage Anhur, then you're not really playing the support role, right? He has a pretty bad mid game because you don't really build damage. And Anhur does really well in the mid game, but that's with damage, right? So you end up in this weird situation where you don't really have any real power spikes besides maybe your Honda's Blessing that's gonna pop off at 75 stacks. But it feels very like a bad curve when you play him. He just feels like he isn't really doing anything, right? And I think he feels like a meat shield in team fights when you're building him tanky. But he's a meat shield that just kind of dies. If you want meat shields, you can pick like 50 other guards that's gonna do that way better than him. Let's move on to some of my experience in the game. Now, builds. Okay, so you definitely want to start off with Honda's Blessing. I tried Guardian's Blessing once. You just actually don't do anything with Guardian's Blessing. You feel so useless. Get Honda's Blessing. You need that early power. You're gonna need those power spikes. You're gonna want them, right? So Honda's Blessing, I think starting with Health Chalice is always a must, honestly, on the Guardians. I don't think you start with War Chalice as well. At least when I did, it didn't feel that good. I think you just get your multi-pots, because Anhur is one of those guards where you want to fight early, you want to get the lead. Therefore, you want your multi-potions rather than your War Chalice, because you want to ensure that you can sustain through the fights early on in like the first few minutes of the lane, right? From there, I honestly think that even though Warrior Tabai is pretty good, I think the movement speed boots actually felt the best to me. Because sure, you get a power spike with Warrior's Tabai, but it's not that big of a power spike if played in the support role at least, right? So I think movement speed boots might be best. I tried Ninja Tabai when I went for my Frostbound Hammer build, because I figured more attack speed equals more slows, more yay, everyone is happy. When it comes to defensive items, I think actually Phoebe's pretty good, because you don't one-shot the wave with your Impale. The problem he has, though, is that if you don't have a team that's willing to let you stack your Phoebes, that shares the waves with you, he just feels super meh, right? So I think that it's not the best idea to go Phoebes. It kind of takes away from his only good state, I feel like, which is the early game. So if you really want to utilize him, you shouldn't even probably even go defense. You should go for some hybrid items, right? Like I tried the silver branch bow and Ikival. I think it's called something else now, I'm not sure. The two 1700 gold bows, and that honestly felt pretty good. It felt pretty strong, and most importantly, it felt like you could actually outbox the enemy ADC and even jungler. So I really like that build, and then you can like throw in a soft, you can throw in a hard water pestilence. I think the most important thing is you have at least 2 defensive items that are auras, because you're just going to be peeling the backline. Your job is to make sure your backline stays alive. And there's 2 ways of doing this, right? Either you can go for like a slow build, or you can go for a high damage build where you just make sure, like, yeah, sure, I have high damage, but I also have a sovereignty, so the warrior can't kill you, but you can actually do consistent damage to him. So if he sticks on your backline, you will kill him eventually without him being able to do anything about it. That's not really the case though, but that's the theory, right? So I think you gotta go for like 2 defensive items and just 3 power items, and then you just gotta go like boots, right? So I would recommend a physical defense item and a medical defense item. The 2 power items should probably be the 2 silver bench bows. Rush them as early as possible. Then you can move into Frostbound Hammer. You can also move into like Titan's Bane, and eventually late game, right, you want to sell for Executioner and Kins instead of your 2 small bows. You honestly get them because it's 3,400 gold. It's super cheap. It kind of helps you curve out. But yeah, I tried a few different things. The full tank build felt horrible. The damage build felt like I was actually able to do something. I had an influence on the game. But my general feeling after playing these games is, well, I didn't feel like I had an impact on the game, which is such a shitty feeling to have, right? Build wise, I think it's hard. I think people can definitely come up with better builds, but this is also why I played 4 games, right? Like I actually, honestly, with you guys, I didn't really feel like playing today, but I figured I gotta do this. I gotta get it done, and I think it just shows that the fact that I actually played. I forced. I honestly love playing Smite, right? So I didn't really force myself. I'm just being a bit of a whiner because I would rather watch the major in CS, but I think that shows that there's so many build opportunities on hunters, and sure, if someone comes up with a good build, I think maybe you can make it work. But we'll get to my conclusion in a bit. But that's it for the builds. When it comes to relics, honestly think Blink is a must. I also almost think that Sprint is a must, because when you don't have a jump, you don't really have that much mobility. You do have high survivability, but that's a big pro as well. And you have high survivability, but you don't have like a lot of mobility. Those are 2 completely different things, right? So you can't really chase, you can't really do anything. Sprint kind of makes up for that. It also makes it so you don't have to ult slow immune everything. I played against a Cubit, and that was really nice that I had the option to sprint every second Cubit ult and ult every second Cubit ult, so I was never gonna get hit by that. But yeah. So relic wise, Shell can work out as well, obviously, if you're gonna peel for a team. I think that's how you want to play NR support. Get like 3 damage items, so and some defense, so the enemy team can't really kill you that easily unless you're getting like focused by 2 or 3 people, which shouldn't be the case. Then that's good for a team anyway. But also make sure you build enough damage that you're relevant and annoying. Some experience from my games, I think that it's very important that you actually got the balls to pressure and jump in early on. You can actually trade. I think one of the biggest things I learned the hard way as well, you can't farm the jungle with Anhur if you're going Hunter's Blessing. You gotta make sure you get the Hunter's Blessing ASAP. Like the earlier you get that, the better your game is gonna be. So just try and focus on like getting all the waves. Sure, you can ping pong between jungle buffs in between the waves, but waves should be your number 1 priority, right? Until you get your Hunter's Blessing stacked. Use the ult for CC immunity, right? You talked about that. You can use the one to block enemies and like create zoning tools thingies. One thing is you're not gonna feel that tanky, honestly, unless you go full defense, obviously, but I just don't think that's the way to go. So don't play like you are a Fafnir that has 300 of these protections and has damage immunity. and like 2 leaps and a heals and 2 stuns and 3 stuns and whatever dog. He's still pretty good Fafnir. Yeah, but I think that like it's just it felt rough, honestly. I'll tell you that much. I didn't feel like I had an impact again, and my best advice would maybe honestly be try a build that works out. Try and peel for your backline and experience, right? So my conclusion, as you guys can kind of hear, is I don't see it happening. Maybe if your team is really good and you learn to play Anhur to a really high level, but it's not like if I'm playing the Afro Viability or like in some of the other viabilities, right? I've been like, oh yeah, this is honestly really good and it could honestly work out, but I don't have that feeling this time, and I feel like it's kind of sad, but that's just how it is. Same goes for Tia, right? I feel like Tia had potential, but I just don't think that hunters are gonna be a thing. Maybe Neve is gonna be the one that's gonna be the difference maker. We're gonna have to try her out, but in general, it's gonna be a no on hunters here for me. But that's pretty much the viability review for this time. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Who's next? Who are we doing next on the viability review? Please let me know, and I will try and pick the most, like, you guys, the most people that says this should be the thingy. That's gonna make it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this and her viability review. If you did, if you came all the way through, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and press the bell. And until next time, everyone, peace out.